for life.
Welcome everyone. Eric, can we do a roll call?
Ms. Kreimer,
Yes.
Mr. Fisher,
Here.
Ms. Mail,
Here.
Dr. Fisher, absent, Mr. Michelson.
Here.
Great, thank you. All right, so we've got a couple of things to do tonight, and I apologize, the agenda I sent out was not posted on the website. We're gonna modify the one for the website. And it looks like what we are missing is, as we move into setting the agenda, I would like to add
Moving into which section?
setting the agenda.
Yeah,
Sorry, do I need to do the minutes first?
we can do the agenda first.
Okay, this is great. Yeah, setting and adopting the agenda, correct? Okay, great. What I would like to add to it is what I had on the agenda that was sent out to you all, reviewing our committee description, electing somebody to keep the record, so taking the minutes, so Eric doesn't have to be here each night, or each meeting, and then, we had committee priorities, and then there was some old business from the minutes that we will approve from October 9th. That I would also like to discuss.
So I have, in addition to whatever other new business items, committee description, electing or appointing a minute taker, which in this case would be the executive clerk. I don't know what we would call that, the minute taker. Committee priorities and old business. Is there anything else?
Not that I have. Does anybody else have any other items?
So to be clear, you're just updating whatever he had that was online to what we have. Okay, so
Correct.
motion to approve as amended from,
Do you all have the version? That was-
I have the version that you sent. I do not know what he's referencing.
Okay.
Did that get to my email as well?
I don't know.
Probably not.
Sitting here. I think this
Okay.
was printed for me when I came in.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
I think it was just a
So
five
the
of us
addition
on
would
there.
be, Ron has on here under new business, Elbrook and Behe intersection
Police
improvement.
Department record management? Yeah.
And then landlord, tenant, licensing.
Okay,
So that would be the only other.
Great.
Can we do a motion to approve as amended?
so we have a motion on the table by Ms. Mail.
Yep.
Waiting for a second.
Second.
So you call the all in favor.
All in favor?
Hey, yeah.
Okay. Nobody's registered to address. Do we need to adopt Robert's rules? On my agenda?
Do we need to, it says in the agenda to adopt Robert's Rules of Order.
You need to do that since it's your first meeting.
All right.
Motion to adopt Robert's Rules of Order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. All right, minutes to be approved.
I wasn't there, so I don't have any to say if it was.
So these are the minutes from the last meeting, which was on this October 9th.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Is anybody here who was there October
I
9th?
was there.
Okay.
You didn't. More or less accurate.
Uh-huh.
It's more or less accurate.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second. I trust your judgment.
Okay, great.
Need it all in favor?
All in favor?
He'll get there with
But no,
Sharon.
this is so formal.
It gets fun.
Yeah.
Time.
Everybody here from Minna?
You need this.
She's unable to make it. Mr. Densmore mentioned that she had a change in schedule and she's unsure whether she'll be able to make meetings moving forward. Is that what I understood?
I asked if she'd be available to talk. It looks like we're having a conversation first.
Okay.
Yep. All right, moving on to new business. Ron, did you want to say anything about the Elbrook Leahy intersection improvement?
Yeah, the engineer's been working on the reconstruction and adding improvements that were based on the Lisanville road plan. Can't recall if that's on the website or not. I'll make sure that the new council members get that plan. The draft, I just received, and I'd like to have the opportunity for the executive committee to review that. And then, we are running on a time frame that we need to get that out for bid, because there are sort of funds that we have been awarded that we need to be in position to make sure that we're fulfilling our obligations to that particular contract. So really, I don't know if it's something that you would like to do at the next executive committee meeting, which I believe is on February 5th, 2 weeks from tonight.
2
So
weeks
what I'd
or-
like to-
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. What I'd like to do is have the engineer here to talk through some of the changes that they're recommending.
County. It's looking like the Hamilton County option is the best for us. It's used by agencies here in the region, so there's a lot of interoperability. Got that off the first try. That allows us to kind of share data easier. Everything's formatted the same. It interacts directly with our CAD, which is the communication center. So when Officer John runs, data is captured in real time that can be imported in for reports versus people having to go back and look at one screen and type in a time when they got there and different things like that. It's a really large project. Captain Reed shared the scope of the project with us a couple weeks ago, and the timeline. Really, the big thing is financing. If we're able to make that financial commitment for this, it would be a system that would replace what we use now, which is a product called Crime Star.
That's what we currently have?
Yeah. To my knowledge, we're the only ones in Hamilton County that use it. It's something that's been in our department for getting close to 2 decades now. I think we switched to it around 2003, 2005, right in there. It's outdated. And something Ron spoke to is when we take reports based on the offense, there's codes that are recognized nationally in the Uniform Crime Reporting. It's called UCR report number. And our system captures those numbers now, but it's not set up to transmit directly where they need to go. It's something that our clerk has to do, and they stopped accepting that version a while back. So we need to be able to interact directly with the data collection center to get those statistics in. And like Ron said, it makes us eligible for more grants than we are now, Department of Justice grants. So, and on top of that, the system we have has walls. It's definitely time to move on.
What's the cost for this new system?
I believe the cost is in the neighborhood of $17,000.
And so what's the grant from the FBI?
I'm sorry.
How much is the grant from the FBI?
Well, there's not a specific grant.
Okay.
This allows us to be able to apply through grants. And I believe there's something that's coming soon.
There was a grant that we applied for. They had mentioned that technically we are not eligible for that grant because we didn't have this reporting.
This updated software
That's
essentially.
exactly
Yeah.
what you were saying. So
Okay.
that was that's the issue is that these kinds of grants for a community of our type. I mean, I actually sat down with the former police chief in Wyoming where I grew up, and he said that a city like Wyoming, they don't get too many of these grants. It's probably a pretty wealthy community. He said, I cannot think of an agency more fitting, right, in a place like Gulf Manor that would want this kind of software.
Right.
Because we don't have the income that they have. He said you can get so many more grants, and they're not going to exclude us for income reasons.
Right. But because we don't have
We don't
whatever
have
the software that they
software.
produce, right?
So you
And
know what they say, you
okay.
got to spend money to make money.
What's your software called?
It's called Sundance.
And whatever questions we had during the council meeting, regarding reporting, this updated software will answer those questions. I think, was it you wanted, but this answers, this also is a solution to her problem too. No?
I
Okay,
think
smile.
for the price, it has to be.
Okay,
I haven't used it yet. So some of the officers that we've brought in are familiar with it from other agencies they've come from that use it, and they speak very highly of it. One of our new hires is offered to help our clerk implement it. He's so familiar with it.
okay,
I would assume it would be looking at the rollout schedule. A lot of things include verifying. I know this sounds trivial, but verifying all of our addresses within the system, which was a crucial step that would help us a lot in our last system. It allows us, if we respond to 6450 Weehee Road, it allows an officer, depending on how he enters it, they will create 10 listings for that same address, depending if they put Cincinnati or Cince
yeah,
or zip code or not zip code, and we can force our system to do that. But if there's a person linked to an address from 12 years ago, and that was put in improperly, as soon as we have contact with that person again, it creates a new address. So if you ask me how many runs we make to 6450 Weehee, and I open that list up, I'm gonna see 9 or 10 6450 Weehees. And we have to combine them, and that's manual. The system doesn't do that for us. I mean, something as simple as that, the new system having everything 100% accurate.
It's a good
makes a big
example.
difference for us.
So you mentioned it was 17K annual. I'm actually a data systems administrator, that's my day job. What would the minimum contract length be? And usually there's annual increases for any sort of data system. So what's the actual like minimum contract in that?
I don't have all that in front of me now. We do pay, Captain Reed did a lot of work on this. I really wish he was here.
Sure.
He knows it inside and out. I'm doing my best to fill in
Yeah,
for him.
sure.
But, so the system we use now, we have to renew licenses. I think it is, Eric, if you remind me, I think it's around 3,200 a year.
You're saying the annual Sundance fee?
The
No,
annual
not
for
Sundance.
Crime
Or
Star.
Crime Star, I apologize, is
Sundance,
yeah, 3,400 something
yeah,
like that.
Sundance was within, I think, $800 of that.
That's per license, that's per officer using it,
No.
per account?
No.
per license, it sounds like you
Per
said, so
year.
one, yeah,
Yeah, I believe,
We only
yeah,
operate on one license.
right, it sounds,
yeah, I believe we get unlimited users for that.
Is there hosting fees? No hosting fees?
I mean, it might be in that.
So, actually, Zach, if you don't mind, can you give me a list of those kinds of questions? Because I'm not a database management
Sure.
administrator at all, and I've gotten some of this information. I know that it was $17,800 is the initial, that's the first year. The second, third, and fourth, I don't remember how long, I didn't look at the contract.
Yeah.
Because I haven't received it yet. But the initial number of about 17,800 is what I recall. And the annual fee, I think, was around 6,000 or 7,000.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. Again, I haven't seen
Sure.
those numbers. But can you give me a list of questions that I can ask?
Yeah.
So that I can.
I can put together a list of questions and send it out to
It's just
everyone.
very helpful because,
Yeah.
you know, again, we're.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things to consider, just because like this is what I do all the time. Typically, there's license, which is the actual software. There's fees for the software. There's hosting. I doubt we're actually hosting the data here locally in the building. So typically, you have to pay for hosting, storage space somewhere.
That we may end up doing the hosting here because we do have a lot of that capability. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
But I know that we already do an enormous amount of hosting here, and we have a backup offsite with
okay.
Signal Hill. So,
Okay.
So under your software, is that included in the services, it looks like.
yeah, I mean, I have to, like, again, the specific quote for us, I
Yeah,
don't
sure.
know. I haven't seen it.
And then a couple things to also consider is there's never a situation where you turn off one program, stop paying, and then the next day you turn on the next program and you start paying the new bill. There's going to be overlap where you have to pay both fees and you're going to be running two databases concurrently while you're doing data migration, while you're doing training, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, so suffered through this in the past where we switched to another system for 2 years. And what we had to do was maintain, so we would maintain Crime Star.
Mhm.
Unless we're able to get all the data out of there, which me from a 10,000 foot view, I don't think we would.
Mhm.
I think we would keep that second. We have Crime Star, so if somebody wants to see a report from 3 years ago, we're able to access that.
So we keep it in
There would
perpetuity?
there would be no ongoing cost.
No
We would
ongoing
basically just download it and keep all that data that we have so we can access it. Our clerk will have requests to expunge a report from 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So we would still have to have the system, have access to the data inside of it.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's no plan to migrate it to the new system.
I don't think we will.
Okay.
Again, Captain Reed has a really detailed.
Just that's interesting, because typically, like, if you just think of it like a computer, which I mean, that's what it is. Like, if you have the data on the old system, someone somewhere has to keep that
The old
computer working.
yeah.
So like, it very well may be something in
Crime
the
Star.
police services and stuff like that I'm just not aware of, because that's not really what I work in like the public field like that. But that would be the first time I ever heard of that, which would be nice. I'd love that. That'd be great.
Crime Star is on our internal server here.
Okay.
So that data is here in-house.
Okay.
Where we pay a servicing fee to them is when they update modules, make
Mhm.
changes.
That's
Right, there have been years where we didn't have to pay a service fee for them, isn't that correct?
There's years where that service fee wasn't paid because what we were using
Was
was out of
adequate.
compliance.
Right, we didn't, it makes sense that it's all locally hosted and that we don't pay to keep that information. It's again, it's all backed up here and it's backed up at Brett's office in Mason, so, I mean, that's,
If we're locally also, that cuts a lot of the costs.
right. Yeah, no, I mean, that's a big thing. That's a good question for Sundance, is that gonna be locally hosted or is that cloud hosted?
In general, the big
How they
push in
make their
industries in general is to go cloud-based, and that's what a lot, like, the specific database company my organization works with, they're cutting all their, so we were locally hosted by them, so it's not really locally hosted, but we're hosted by that company. They're no longer doing that. They're just cutting it out entirely and moving everything to like either Azure or Amazon, AWS, Amazon cloud-based services. So I wouldn't be surprised. But I can type up a series of
Yeah, please, if you don't
questions
mind,
and
that would
send
be
your way.
extremely helpful, just making sure that we're.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be part of that with you and Captain Reed, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Quick question for Chief Campbell. Would there be an opportunity that we could have a demonstration of this software, that everybody could see what it does? We have the opportunity to ask questions of the vendor.
I can find out, I'm sure we can make that happen.
Okay.
And if you're not migrating, at the example that you gave where you're putting in one address, what then is populating? If it's not populating all the messy data that we had prior, is it pulling in from like Hamilton County? Is it pulling in from other municipalities?
So, the plan would include us, we wouldn't go back indefinitely, but we would import, or we would actually have to manually import it, is my understanding. Some of this data, so we have some historical reference to calls at certain addresses and things like that. We just would import the entire thing.
So you're still dealing with like messy old data that would still need the manual labor to kind of clean that up, correct?
Right,
The same
but
issue you're having on the
The
current.
thing is for reporting purposes going forward, the runs we made in 2019 to 2151 Sanibel won't be as important as when we implement this system and we're putting in accurate information and it's geo-based, it's verified. It can only be that one address.
So you'll still have messy data, but going forward, reporting will be accurate.
Right.
Okay.
Just down in the basement, there's typewriter reports. We have like layers of fossils of how old the department is. So we have this older system we used called LEOT. There's 2 years of that. The previous system when I first started was Word program that actually dispatchers entered all the officers' handwritten reports. I didn't know I had to type when we got hired because we wrote everything out and then switched to our own system. And our officers were typing our reports ourselves. We've always had these layers, but this one right now is the best what everybody's using, everybody's switching to.
And then finally, I guess it's probably one of the questions that you can include too, is like, if there's a update, like to the software every 6 months to a year or something, is that included in that annual cost?
There's an
Or
annual licensing fee, and that would
or
include,
every 4 years, do we need an update, or
yeah,
like a big one?
it looks like it's annual, would be included in the annual service agreement or
Okay.
service fee. Again, I apologize, I'm explaining.
No,
this
it's
to you
fine,
because
no.
Captain Reed could do a much better
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, no, that's pretty standard, you know, every company's on a different timetable.
Right,
Some work in 3 months, 6 months, annual, depending on the size of updates, you know. And that's all part of your typical service agreement.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying for, you know, for them to update it.
like, do you want to continuously, or if you don't need it updated every 2 or 4 years, you don't have to pay for that update every 2 or 4 years?
The security will be much more robust too, because it will be used by the communications center. So as they dispatch us, the information is coming from that into our system, and you have to have a very high degree of security for that. Crime has security, but it's in.
The staff.
Okay, yeah, I'm not positive on what that time investment would be. I know early on, we'll definitely be with them. Setting up each module as they go. But we would share that across different personnel. There would be some stuff that Denise, our clerk, would have to be more involved in.
Okay.
So we would spread that out.
And is there funding for this in the police budget, or are we asking this to come out separately
We were not planning on it this time last year.
in the police budget?
Right. We did not budget for this. This came up recently.
Is there additional costs for City Hall with the transition?
My understanding, again, sorry, Captain Reed's not here. My understanding is this is more us with the vendor. There would probably be some involvement for Sigma Bill. I don't know what that would be. I don't think it would be much.
It didn't look like there was a hardware investment in this. So I think we have everything that we need for that now.
All right, anything else? Thank you, Chief Campbell. Landlord and tenant licensing, Ron, is that you?
So something we've talked about for a couple of years, and I guess this is on here more to take council's temperature on if you want to try and pursue this year. There was a program that we had assembled probably in 2016, 2017, that was a licensing program for landlords where they were required on an annual basis to pay the village a $50 per unit fee, which would fund additional code enforcement labor. Essentially, the program was set up to pay for itself based on the fees, which would allow an annual inspection of each rental property in the village. The approach was not great in terms of communicating with the community. The landlords rallied around the wagons and set up for an interesting meeting. And council quickly backed off of the program, and we've not visited it since. City of Cincinnati has put together a program since then, and we were just prior to the pandemic starting to interact with the Landlords Association to determine what kind of a program we could put out there that would be palatable for everyone. To me, a needs analysis would include doing a survey of residents who live in rental properties in the village to see what their level of satisfaction is, try to find out if they are having issues with landlords, how quickly issues are being taken care of, trying to figure out what and where or if there is a problem, essentially. And then beyond that, trying to determine whether there's a legislation or legislative, I can't say that word, or operational type of approach that we can take to try and alleviate rental problems in the village. There are a couple of large landlord companies who do operate here who are being looked at very carefully in the city of Cincinnati. I can't imagine that those operators are not a problem here. Hopefully they would not be, but I think it's something that in terms of affecting quality of life, it's something that I think council needs to have a discussion about and provide some direction to the administration on how you would like us to deal with it. It's an emotional issue for some people. Checking in on rental properties and where people are living is something that a lot of people aren't interested in having government take a look. However, bringing our code enforcement back into the village has given us the opportunity, particularly with having Mr. Putoff as our code enforcement official, to have some insight into what's going on out there. There was an issue probably 3 years ago where we had a landlord who had sexual offenders who were being housed in their property and they were not being supervised. And this type of program would allow us to continue to be on top of monitoring that situation. And I believe what the police department has found out is that the county does not enforce our not necessarily improved, but enhanced sexual offender ordinance. It's up to us to make sure that we know where the sexual offenders are and to act on those. We thought the parole folks were doing that, and they're not. It's our ordinance, and they're expecting us to deal with it.
I have had them reach out to me to verify addresses. I've received calls to verify if an address was okay or not. Not very frequently.
So the big thing is about being smart, having information, doing the legwork to figure out what's out there. We do have a vacant building ordinance on the books that we really need to be enforcing more stringently. But again, it's a matter of having the capacity. Mr. Putoff is keeping up with the daily things that happen. So we just need to figure out how to have a process and approach of dealing with it on a regular basis.
Yeah, maybe we can get community engagement involved, at least scope out Ridge Acres first, because I think half of those condos are out-of-state investors who own those.
Well, Mr. Putoff is currently working on a couple of issues where we can't find the people who own the property. So
Okay.
that happens more frequently than not. The other issue that I think this approach will also help us with is trying to deal with issues like the Stover properties before they get to that point. One of the things that we'll be bringing before council in the next probably in the month of March, I'm guessing, is condemnation of buildings and preparing to raise them. Some of the buildings that have been closed on Stover. So more on that later. But that's, again, to me, that all points a need to being on top of this on a regular basis and trying to put the resources toward where we need them to make this happen. So that, I guess the question for council at this point is, how would you like us to proceed in terms of, is this a priority for you at this point? I know that we've talked about economic development, and this actually is a part of that in trying to assist with improving our property within the village.
So I'd actually like input from renters before I answer that.
I'm sorry, say that
So I
again.
think I would actually rather, I would like input from renters before I answer any of that.
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to the strategic plan and gathering community input for that. Because this is a question on like where are we putting our attention and our resources? And we've not gathered community input on the strategic plan, so I can't answer the question of like, is that where we should be doing this? I'm also not clear when you say, how do we want the village to proceed? Is it just in trying to track down landlords so that we're collecting this $50 per unit? What is it? Is it doing inspections? What, like, when you say proceed, what is it that you?
What's the action she's asking, yeah.
Well, I think we need to decide how we want to address the issue, because previous councils have not been fond of the licensing program. The landlords definitely do not want us to do that. They, in the past, have loudly expressed their disdain for us doing something like this. I think with the strategic plan and the quality of life component of the strategic plan, plus the engagement piece with the engagement committee, to me, we need to find out what the issues are out there at this point. I don't want to be spinning Mr. Putoff's wheels, trying to address a problem that doesn't exist. We believe there's a problem that exists just because of the number of violations that are looked at on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So,
I think the issue is larger than maybe we can answer in this meeting. Because there's a lot of people who are renters and do not have leases and therefore don't have a lot of rights. So they're not gonna call the village even, they're not gonna call, housing inspections, they're not gonna report any instances because that means they have very little rights. So maybe something we could do is make sure for community engagement, we get a question out there for folks. But in the meantime, perhaps what we could do is, there's lots of nonprofits out there that do tenant right education. It's very tricky when you don't have a landlord or a lease, which a lot of these shady landlords are not doing because they understand that means they can kick you out and you do not have your very limited rights. So getting somebody to actually come and address this issue is going to be difficult, especially with the housing market and how unaffordable moving is, especially for lower income folks or seniors or parents. So perhaps what we could do is bring in housing opportunities made equal or legal aid. They have tenant rights. Somebody to do an educational series here. Right. So from our council meeting was executive committee's purpose is to work with the administration, monitor and make recommendations to council on strategies and legislation related to safety, health, operations, infrastructure, property maintenance, police, environmental, and other issues not directly related to financial issues.
That's a quote from the website. It's on
Correct.
from the homepage of community on the council committee.
That's not what I wrote.
That's right. Do you have a different description for us to review?
Yes, it's very similar. You'll notice in the first line, there's a couple extra pieces that are put in under the executive umbrella.
Where can I find that?
Except I have it right here, and I can email it out. It should be entered into the record with the minutes we have the next full council meeting. It's the executive committee will research and develop strategies, making recommendations to council on matters concerning village policies and legislation related to safety, health, operations, infrastructure, property maintenance, police, environmental, and other issues not directly related to financial issues. So it adds that piece about research and develop strategies. Making recommendations to council.
Mr. Densmore, are you referring to what's currently on the website?
No.
Okay.
What was that?
It was when I declared them a little bit more years, it was getting transferred over to the website.
Did you email us?
Yeah, so we have an email copy.
Can we also edit the minutes for council to have included that? That's where he said that last time.
For us to include the,
The descriptions that he's sending out for the council or for committees.
where's this description from?
He said he read it into council last time, so I was asking if we could get that into the minutes.
Last
I mean-
time, or you read it into council,
I don't.
He
unless I
did
have
read
it.
them last time. He read 'em.
he said when he declared them.
Right, but I don't have a,
Which was the 8th.
I don't have a
When he
print copy of
declared
that.
And I'm asking when he sends it, if we.
Oh,
Can you
yeah,
just
of course,
include it in
I'm
the
sorry, I was
minutes?
like,
Yeah,
I didn't,
Sorry.
I'm not a stenographer, I'm quick.
No, when he sends it, if we can. put
Yeah,
that in
that's-
the minutes for the.
Sure.
So am I emailing it to everyone right now? Is that the request?
Yes.
Or, okay. I guess I'm including finance as well as community engagement, just because I can do that. Everyone.
Yes, if you could have all of the descriptions in there. All right, let's move on for now. I would like to, we talked about this in the rules of council, to elect somebody to take our minutes for us for each committee meeting, so that Eric does not have to be here. And can get some time back in his evening. So I would like to elect somebody to do that. Tell us go.
I'm good. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, motion to elect Zach or appoint Zach.
Or Brittany. one of the two.
Would you like to help tag team us?
Not
Mr.
particularly.
Michelson.
I mean,
So
so,
I would advise you need to go back and take a look at the charter, because the charter specifically states that the fiscal officer acting as the clerk will take the minutes of council meetings, which would include committee meetings.
Oh,
It's in section 5.03, 5.04 in the charter that we saw.
sorry, Mr.
We saw that last time, and I think the discussion was if it includes committees or not.
Correct, I thought the solicitor confirmed that we could elect our own
That's what I
note taker.
thought.
Once you've chosen your new rules of council, you can do that, but currently you're operating under the old rules of council.
Tracking.
Okay, well, then I am done for the night. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Is that our whole, we got everything?
We have set committee priorities, we've already talked about a couple, and I don't think we're gonna get anywhere in 6 minutes. We have another committee meeting.
So just to clarify, are we leaving Eric as our minute taker, or are we?
For the moment, because we're not allowed to select one until we officially pass the rules of council at our next full council meeting.
And included in that will be our ability to appoint our own chairs and clerks.
Correct.
It's the law.
As long as my wife knows that I might not have to be here, I think we're good. She'll be okay.
Okay.
She'll still be up at set, but I'll take it. What am I gonna do?
Anything else? We move this set committee priorities for our next meeting.
All right,
I'm
usually
sorry.
you announce the next
Right,
meeting.
next meeting. So we have February 5th at 6 PM is what is in the minutes here. Is that correct?
Correct. Next meeting, February 5th, 2024, 6 PM. Same spot.
So we had a motion to adjourn by Mr. Michelson, waiting for a second.
Second,
All in favor?
All in favor?
All right. Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
And early.
We're clear.